Welcome to the on wax. We rolling?
We're rolling.
What are we at? 15?
16, taking the leap toward music.
Welcome to episode 16 of Rainbows on Wax. My name is Alex.
And I'm Steve.
We're here to talk about, as Steve just said 1 second ago, taking the leap. The leap into music, into a musical career, into the abyss.
Yes.
The wildest part. Probably
the
like...
Wild West.
You know, we talk a lot about songwriting. We talk a lot about...
music independence.
Yeah. But like all the other things
that
are involved in a music career. Learning your craft, honing your craft, learning about creative.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this... probably the hardest part about it.
Navigating it.
Yeah.
Right.
And just taking the jump. Like...
yeah.
I was thinking about this today, even on the drive over. I was like, you know, I'm not the greatest guitar player, like by any stretch. Like I'm good enough. And I was like, you know, what sort of makes a good guitar player? Like, do you need to be fast? Do you need to like know tons of chords? Sometimes just having like decent rhythm is like I probably like rate that higher on the scale of like things to know. Like if you know tons of chords.
Yeah.
But
which
you
is your
can't
left
really,
hand if you're a right hand player.
Yeah, I feel like you can't play them in time. They're kind of pointless.
I 100% agree. I often tell artists, I'm like, it's all in your right hand.
Yeah.
If you're right-handed, obviously.
Yeah.
Rhythm.
Swap it if you're left-handed.
Rhythm is the steez.
Yeah.
It's why you get high. It's the groove.
You know, and all that's in the right hand. And I felt like that's always what I was like quite good at.
Yeah.
And also I think by the time I got to like a point where I could sort of play and sing at the same time, I kind of was like, that's enough. That's good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can sort of play a few John Mayer songs. You know, I know all my basic chords.
Mm-hmm.
I know my power chords. I know my bar chords.
Mm-hmm.
I know like a few weird chords. And that's it. Like there's nothing else sort of too special.
We're very similar in that respect.
Yeah. But the rhythm was like something that, you know, I tried to work on and tried to play in time. And I think that can benefit you a lot in a music career, just like being a recording artist. But anyway, we talk about all of these things, all the parts of the craft, you know, and that's all well and good. Mm-hmm. But there's this whole thing where it's like, all right, how do I do this as my job? Mm-hmm. How do I not do something else?
It's an often scary thought for people.
Yeah.
It's the most intimidating part of taking that leap. Right?
Yeah.
It's people. What kind of struck this topic for me was having a conversation with an artist the other day, and he was just like, "Man, I'm so depressed.
Yeah,
like I'm just like." You know, I feel down all the time when I'm at my job. I'm not doing what I want to do. All I want to do is play music. And I'm like, I can relate. Like I was there. And it's, you know, I'm still seeking. You know, someone that does work in music full time. I'm still seeking. I'm still kind of trying to create opportunities and
hustling.
Like, hustle. What's the next thing? Like, what's going to happen after this session? Like, trying to think a few months ahead each time. It's probably not enough.
Yeah.
But
it's probably all that most of us can handle.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
But it all comes down to that entrepreneurial mindset and having like a, you know, not just using your creativity for music, but using it in a way that you pave your own way in this space. Like there's no formula. In the music industry, there's no formula.
There's formulas
in
a way. Like there's lots of different ways that you can do things, I guess. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, you know, if you really hone in on your craft and you're some like phenomenal songwriter who doesn't want to do any of this other bullshit, like you better be so crazily good at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else, all the industry will kind of respond to that and tick all these boxes of things that you
can't do.
Can't do basically, or don't want to do or whatever. but it's such a rare scenario, and so many great musicians, or decent musicians make it without technically being one of the greats. They're not necessarily the greatest music, but they're doing better than most of the people out there because they're entrepreneurial and hustling their next thing. I guess like I sort of always knew I wanted to end up in music, but I've always had other jobs like around, whether it's around music or not around music. Plenty of musicians out there would know, like working in a cafe is a pretty standard one.
Yep.
I think it's a good one though.
Casual hours.
Yeah.
Quite flexible.
Yep. They're early days normally, so like you kind of finish your day early and you can like go and do music for the afternoon. And I always like tried to find jobs that would start at like 5 or 6 in the morning, because then you can finish your day at midday and you've got all the afternoon to figure out the next bits and pieces. That was even when I had my first child as well.
Yeah.
So we were, balancing a brand new baby in the house. And that was kind of when I was like, I need like a steady income. So cafe will be a steady income and I'll like hone my craft in the afternoons. And eventually, I don't know how long it really took. Maybe a year. I don't know exactly, but I'd say around a year of like kind of doing that before like I was able to drop the cafe and just do the music. So it seems maybe like a long time to some people, but then maybe to other people it's like a year's not very long.
Well, that's not very long to get into the music industry. To make it full time, like that's quite like you obviously were in it so much you were able to like build something quite quickly. A year is not long.
Yeah.
No way.
But that was like, I'd say like 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Like writing or producing with people for free.
Yeah.
Too.
And
like
that's
not making
thing.
any money.
That's another thing. There's got to be so much free work. Like, I get it. Musicians or bands, it's a different path.
Yeah.
Right? But being a producer, being an engineer, songwriter, like you got so much free shit to do.
Yeah.
Basically, you've got to build a rock solid portfolio to a point where it's not just about the portfolio, it's about you as a person, how good you are to work with.
Yeah.
Your attitude in that environment, how how you can easily bounce ideas off people and inspire at the same time.
Yeah.
So man, there's so many hats to wear.
Yeah.
Like it's not easy, and something that you just have to be creative with.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was a car mechanic for 7 years.
Yep.
I got that job because I thought I needed job security. Absolutely hated every minute of it. Hated it. I'm not a good I'm not good at taking orders.
Yeah.
I was from the boss. I've always, even in high school, I was that kid that was like, I was cluey as, I was smart enough, but I just didn't want to.
They're often the worst. That was me too.
Yeah.
They're rebellious, right?
Rebellious. I was just like, can you do this assignment and write a 3,000 word essay on this book called The Hobbit? I was like, fuck that.
What's the point?
Yeah. I'm like, why? It's already in the book. Just read the book, sir.
Read the book if you want it. Who really needs all this stuff?
But, it was...
Those kind of attitudes, they do end up in creative industries.
Yeah. There's a place for everyone.
Yeah.
All right? There's a place for everyone. But, probably like you too, I always wanted music.
Yeah.
I always knew I was going to do something with music.
Yeah.
Just didn't know how to get there.
Yeah. Having the solid base, isn't the worst idea, though. Rick Rubin talks about it. I did it, having that sort of normal job, whatever that might be, finding something that is a bit strategic too, that you can it's not like a crazy 9 to 5 where you're getting home at 5:30 and then trying to do stuff. Credit to you if you can do that, but
a job like being a car mechanic where it's 8 hours,
early starts,
I was working 8 to 4.
Oh, yeah, that's not too bad.
So it wasn't too bad. Like I was a weekend warrior.
Yep.
I was, I would go from work home, grab my shit, go to a rehearsal, maybe rehearse twice a week, play a show on Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
That was like I lived for the weekends.
Yeah.
In that kind of job, in that kind of environment, I was living purely to enjoy my weekends.
Yeah.
Hence the drugs and the drinking and all that sort of shit that went along with it, right? But
well, the social side of it is like so important as well.
Yeah, but it was a detriment because come Monday, I was just like ruined, man. The most depressed guy, like hated everything, was shit to work with.
Yeah.
Like my bosses definitely hated me on Mondays.
Like
I'd chuck a sickie or whatever and I'd just be like, oh, like, nah.
Yeah, got nothing in the tank.
Nah, nothing. So, 7 years passed of that kind of lifestyle and I moved down here to the Sunshine Coast and I kind of really hit the wall.
Yeah.
Like I had full intentions of finding a new life, a new career, and I just wanted that cultural inspiration.
Yeah.
And straight away I got another mechanic's job when I moved here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what am I doing? Like
for safety.
It's the easy way out. It's job security.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just, same thing, fell into that same rut of hating it. Like, yes, I was very active in finding a new project and playing shows and pushing a band towards more and more opportunities, but same thing. I became depressed. I was like...
back into the same rut.
Back into that same bullshit thing and, trying to fill a void that just couldn't be filled because I was hanging on to this other thing that I thought was secure for my life. But what I really wanted out of life was this freedom of creativity and to work for myself and all those sorts of things. Yeah. And understanding that and knowing what that was came way later. Like I'm still seeking, right, for lack of a better term, but
yeah, I mean it's still like, it's always going to be a journey, and it's always like I think always need that entrepreneurial spirit. Where's the next job coming from? Who am I meeting? Who am I working with? Like who's going to pay me to work? Yeah.
And that's a scary moment.
Like, I think a big jump too, like for a lot of producers, songwriters, different things like that, would be the kind of like you might start charging money for like your services because like people are benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. So a good place to start is always about like $400 a day. Mm-hmm. I think Australian money for working
for like
being a producer or something. Yeah. So like you have a day rate. Yeah. I think Steve Albini. Is he still alive? Did he die?
He passed away.
Yeah. I think he had a day rate, like, forever. Like, and it wasn't even that crazy. Like, he just always had this, like, day rate that he worked with. A lot of artists then producers move into, like, a song rate, so it's, like, per song. Yeah. But, yeah, the next step then is kind of finding the right artist to work with. Mm-hmm. So, seek and destroy, for lack of a better term, was sort of my method, too, was, like, who's doing stuff, like who's keen to work with me, look into your friend circles, and find the right people to work with. Matt was obviously a big one for me because he was doing stuff. Like, I mean, he was kind of potentially at the height, of a part of his career anyway. He was on top of the world. Yeah. So I was like, oh, Matt's a good friend. Like I'll work with him. And, that sort of led to all these other opportunities from just one person.
So this is like a right place, right time kind of thing, right? Because
–
before that, like, was there – like, you weren't not ready to jump into that. Like, you had some kind of –
I had basic understanding of it. You had
basic understanding of experience and working with a co-writer or a client or someone like that. Like, you were –
yeah. I guess, like, him being a friend too, like, it allowed us, like, the friendship to kind of be a thing as well. Like, we had time. It wasn't like there was an expectation on an outcome. He wasn't like paying me or anything. It was just like, I mean, he eventually did pay me to work on stuff, but not at the beginning. It was just sort of like, hey, come and hang out. He'd pay my way and look after me with food and shelter. But, you know, it was just sort of that jump, and like it just takes really one artist to kind of believe in you who might be already doing stuff. And there's plenty of them out there that are keen to work with people. You just got to kind of throw your hand up and be like, hey, I'm learning. Can I like come hang out and like write a song or like help you with some production, or just hang out and push buttons, like roll leads or cook food or make tea?
There's no fake it till you make it.
No.
Like there's way more trust than that has to be apparent in these kinds of relationships.
They'll know too. Like the artists, especially if they're experienced, they'll know pretty quickly how experienced you are. At what you're doing. And there might be like still tons of cool stuff that you can bring to the table, like young, naive energy is amazing in music. And these established artists are often losing that a little bit because they can be quite jaded from the music industry. So that's one thing that you can always bring, is this level of excitement and enthusiasm in creating music. And then one person sort of, you know, it just takes that one person, like whoever it can be. You know, find the cool artist, whether it's a young artist, an established artist, like find someone cool who you think, these people are going to do stuff. They're going to get some notoriety. Then all of a sudden people will look to you and be like, oh, I like what they did. Can you do that for me?
Reputation.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's just a snowball from there. Well, it did anyway for me. It was kind of like my first album I made was with Great Gable. And they'd heard a song I'd written with Matt. Like on Spotify, they must have looked at the credits, realized that I was kind of like a young up and coming producer. So they were like, oh, maybe Alex would want to work with us. And they flew over like from Perth, and we met, and like we're still like awesome friends. They're such legends. Obviously they're on Rainbow Valley Records. I even got Matt in on that like production because he wanted to be a producer too, and is a producer now. I was like, you want to come work with these rad dudes and muck around and like figure out what's going on? So that was like the first step then for me, going from like just writing music, producing some stuff for people. I don't know. I honestly can't remember if much was released, the stuff that I'd produced. Some of it probably was, but a lot of it would have just been like existing in a computer and just for fun, just for the artist, just for us to muck around
feel
with.
Vibes out.
Yeah.
Throw down ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but then it was like, okay, we're going to make an album now for Great Gable, and this is going to be released. So it needs to be good. And they had some grant money and different things like that. So we were able to get a bigger studio.
Yeah.
But even things like that, when it was like, all right, I'm going to go to, it was at the farm. And
cool. Oh yeah. In, where's that again? That's
outside of Byron.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not technically Byron. Where is it? Mullumbimby.
Yeah. Beautiful space.
Amazing studio. Yeah. But I don't pretend like I know everything in these studios. So I made sure we had a budget for an engineer. Turned out to be a friend of mine anyway, a dear friend of mine. It was so funny when I was like, oh, can you just like send the in-house person in to like help us get set up? And then my mate Derek rocks up, and I was like, Derek? He's like, yeah, I set this whole place up. And he's so humble, Derek. Like he's such a legend. So, you know, he got us all set up, and once it's kind of up and running, I'm okay. But you could still be the coolest, greatest engineer and walk into a studio that's not yours, and there's weirdness.
Yeah.
There's weird buttons you need to press. Like, you never know what's going on, especially with old gear. And that was, I guess, like the first sort of thing that was like, all right, now I've made an album, you know, I can be a part of helping people to make records. I could charge a little bit more money, you know, to make it work. And that's when it sort of started to just turn into an actual career. Yeah. Rather than...
And were you still working your casual jobs at this point?
Sometimes. My boss was pretty cool. Like, he'd let me go away and come back. Like, I could leave for a couple of months and make an album, come back and be like, oh shit, I got no work.
Good boss.
Yeah, he was
good
a legend.
Boss.
Yeah, Fox Coffee. Shout out Fox Coffee.
Nice.
Yeah, they were just so nice. And like, I guess like they were always in need of staff anyway. Like, it's a cafe, people rolling in and out all the time.
Yeah.
So he was always cool if I was like, I've got to go, I've got to quit. I've got a great job. And he was like, legend, sick, enjoy your time. And then I come back and be like, I got no work. And he's like, well, come back and work then, you know. So,
Bless people like that.
I know.
Bless people like that.
They don't hold a grudge and be like, well, you
No.
left us.
No.
You're not ever coming back here. It's like, well, okay, like
Yeah.
I'm trained. Like I know what I'm doing. Just,
Yeah.
if you got space, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was cool like that. And yeah, it really wasn't until I guess like I hit, which is sort of through COVID and stuff. And Matt and I, made this record label that it was really like turned into a full-time job for me. I think I would have, there's probably things I should have done differently. Probably should have said yes to like basically every project. I started to like think, I only want to work on projects like that I believe in or I want to work on or what's cool. And I don't
Is
think
there
that's the
any
vibe.
that you regret saying no to? Like a specific one?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even really think.
Okay, good.
Well, I mean, a big one was like Tones and I.
Oh, right. There you go.
Not that I said no to it, but like I sort of like, we did a songwriting session and I was like, that's cool. Like, have a good life.
Yeah.
Like, she was lovely and we wrote a song. But I guess like I didn't really know, like at that time I probably wasn't the best like producer and like she was like finding her sound, like figuring out who she was. And, she ended up working with Constantine, obviously an amazing producer. And he was probably like a couple of years ahead of me at least.
Yeah.
And will forever be. But he knew what to do. He was like, okay, she's got this sound, like we're gonna pull this thing together. And he made Dance Monkey, like what a huge song.
Crazy. Blew up.
Yeah, not that I missed out on that opportunity. Like I don't think it was ever offered to me anyway, but it probably could have been if I'd pushed.
Yeah.
If I was like, oh, hey, like I'd love to like make your EP or whatever, which I never really did. I was just sort of like, hey, that was lovely. That was a nice time. Thank you. Goodbye. Like,
But
not really for me.
you were guided into other opportunities from that. From saying no to that, like you found a lot of yeses in other areas.
Yeah, I guess so for sure. And, there's probably other things that maybe not the best to get into. Like I had like other issues going on. Like obviously I had not an issue, child.
First name issue, second name Nicholas.
Yeah, old Sonny boy. But those sort of like they were life things. That like, again, like there's so many amazing stories out there from musicians that write some of their best stuff when they start having children. So don't necessarily think it's like, this is the end of my career.
No way.
Sometimes your greatest stuff sort of comes after the kids. But no, I think it wasn't sort of too long until like we were all kind of locked down anyway. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like do nothing for months on end. Which sucked too, because like I felt like that was when I was about to hit a stride. Like I was,
You had all this momentum, and then COVID hit, and it was just like, wow,
I can't do anything. All my
pull the rug.
Like generally, most of the people I worked with were like in New South Wales or Perth or like Melbourne. Like they weren't from Brisbane, and like I had one band, The Riot, that I worked with. And they were from the Gold Coast.
Project.
Yeah, that was an awesome project. And again, like, sucks for them too with the whole lockdown thing because, like, I think they could have been one of the coolest bands in the country. Amazing performers, songwriters, like, just brilliant dudes, brilliant energy. And they're still, like, all in the music industry doing their thing. But I think they were such a live band.
Yeah.
And
there was this energy between those, what was it, 3 guys, right?
3 of them, yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
The music just shows, man.
Like, and on stage, they're just out of control. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
So professional. So unique for Australia, too. But again, I just think, it was just such an unlucky situation where they couldn't play live. Like, you just couldn't see them. And to be fair, the music, like, it's cool online, but like I feel like you fall in love with that band if you see them live. Yeah. And then you go and listen to the records, not the other way around. Yeah. You might hear it and go, oh, this is cool, like, but they just blow your socks off live. So that definitely put like a spanner in the works for me. And it was just lucky enough that this label started and I was able to kind of pick my own projects and get paid to do them after that, which, again, was just such a lucky lucky thing to do.
But you'd set that, like, it's not all luck. Like, you really put yourself in that position to be able to receive opportunities like that, because they won't ever get handed to you if you're not, like, present in that scene, in that moment, in people's minds, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a full, make the bed and lay in it kind of vibe.
Yeah, you've got to be worthy enough, and like you've obviously got to have some sort of skill to you, and then some sort of attraction about you. The Dregs was an interesting one. Like we just got in touch, I think, online. Like my sister she looks after like the Rainbow Valley Records Instagram, and was chatting to them there, and she was like, "Oh, these guys are really good." And then another friend of mine was like, she's just in love with them, and she was like going to the shows, and she took my wife to one of the shows, and I was like, "Oh, they're playing at the Tivoli." I was like, "Whoa, like who are these guys?" Like selling such massive shows, and I had no idea who they were. And yeah, we just jumped on the phone and just had a real good yarn. And that's what led to, working on their album. It was, again, just like being a good person, and obviously they're good people as well. Like, surrounding yourself with good people to get an opportunity to kind of work on something cool. And they were, lucky enough to be in a position that they had money to pay me, to pay for studios, to pay for everything, because they were selling out such massive shows. But yeah, a lot like stems from definitely just me and Matt's friendship. Matt is so influential. He's so like, he's had an impact on so many people with his music. And even just that tiny skerrick that I've been involved in with him has helped my career so much. There was a piece of advice given to me years sort of beforehand from this guy called Andrew B., who's a phenomenal producer, more so in like the live stuff. He does like big productions, big live productions like Olympics and stuff like that. But I remember asking him, I was like, I had a band at the time. I was like, we want to work with this producer. I forget who he was. I think he was a guy who produced like In Excess or something. And Andrew kind of flippantly, or maybe not flippantly, was like, Alex, work with people who are doing things, not with people who have done things.
Yeah.
So like he may have these amazing credits from 50 years ago or however long ago, but is he doing anything now? And I was like, what? Not really. And I had this like acoustic act that I was working on, and that's when I reconnected with my old friend Rowan, because I was like, Rowan's in this band, The Middle East. They're really successful. Hey, Rowan, do you want to help me record some stuff? And he did. And, it's that friendship of Rowan that introduced me to Matt. Like, it's all these kind of follow your nose sort of things, but there's these little bits of advice that, definitely marked, a few points in my career at least. And I can't stress that enough. Work with people who are doing things, not people who have done things. Yeah. So even if they're like younger, keener producers, if you're a band, like work with those people. Like they're keen, they're hungry, rather than, old Joe Blow up the road who's just like, you're just another number to them. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, cool.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Plenty of people doing stuff.
Yeah.
Finding those people. And then, if you are a producer or a band, same thing. Who's at that next level above you that you can reach, and reach out to them and go like, we'd love to play a show with you. I know bands probably do this a lot, but if you actually got some decent music and you've got a bit of a following and you're just nice people and keen, that might be the next sort of step for you. And same if you're a producer or a songwriter. Don't be afraid to reach out to these people who are a bit above you. Maybe don't go too crazy. Just reach out and then go, hey, like, do you want to write a song together? And if it turns into something, that's your next step to the next person. Because then now they're your median or whatever. They're your like bottom rung of people that you're working with. So then you can jump up to the next step. And hopefully that sort of continues on.
So all of these moments, though, they'll reveal themselves to you. Like, again, it's touching on what we said earlier about paving your own way. Like, you knew Matt, you took a leap into basically going and working for nothing with him.
I still had to ask him, like, yeah, sure enough, we were friends, but like,
Yeah.
he's working with some of the coolest people in the world.
Yep.
And I was like, well, what about me? Like, I write folk, country,
Yeah.
punk bullshit. And
Take
it
me
has
with you, dude.
Yeah. Stuff that just has nothing to do with his
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh, well, we're friends enough. Like,
Yeah.
we've been friends for 6 months or whatever.
And then the
Sure.
snowball just grew from there, right?
Yeah,
So,
I can hang out with you.
yeah.
And I'd be the same. Like, if someone wanted to work with me or like have experience or whatever, like,
Yeah.
first and foremost, it'd be like, can I spend 8 hours in a room with you today?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is no, like, there's no way. Like, I don't care how good you are.
Yeah.
But if you're just a nice person and chill and can be a fly on the wall, and, yeah, you'll get an opportunity for sure. Like, no problem.
I kind of like there's in my experience there's been a few leaps, and yes, there's the leap towards Yamanui, hanging out with Paulie. Like, just again, it's like being able to spend time with someone in the same environment for long periods of time. Like, that's a leap you've got to just follow your gut on. Like,
Oh, yeah, we had to learn that too.
yeah,
We had to learn to be the kid in the room,
yes,
you know, not be annoying.
yeah. Even though you've got an education, even though you went to uni and studied all this shit, you're still the youngest person here. Like, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And just listen and help without intervening, basically. That was a learning curve for me as well. Like, definitely something that, like, thank you, Paulie. Blessing, bro. Sensei Po.
Yeah, that's so. Like, it's honestly the biggest thing, and I think like musicians, we can all get egos. We can all think we're killing it.
Yeah. Everyone's got ideas. Everyone's got creative input.
I'd say with any of those ideas too, like you probably agree with this as well. It's like keep your ideas for when you're like having a coffee in the morning or having lunch break. Like then you could sort of be like to the senior person and be like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Like, I had this idea. Like, that's probably a more appropriate time to bring up ideas because you don't know how far ahead these people are thinking.
Yes.
You know, like they're thinking 7 steps ahead. They're thinking about the end product of the song and how they're getting there. And they may have already thought of all these ideas too.
Yeah.
So you don't want to constantly be interrupting with like, oh, I want to do this. And they're like, well, yeah, we are going to do that. But like, we've got to do all these other things first. So they're finding like the timing.
It's timing, judging the room, like just being also confident in your own voice and confident in your own trust with the others. Like that's something that doesn't just happen. Like you've got to build that. For me, I guess what I really wanted to talk more about is the leap from, I don't want to say a normal career because there is no normal career now, but like for me, it was going from a tradie to being a musician. This leap, and people still stop me and like, dude, like, how did you do that? You know, it's so crazy that you did that. It's so crazy that you just had the confidence to like let go of something you've worked so hard on and did so well in, and then just went in a different direction. Like, that's crazy. And like, to me, I don't think it's that crazy. Like, one life, like there's all these beautiful Japanese sayings, right? Ikigai, Ichigo Ichi. It's like one life, one moment, purpose, all of these things, right? That resonated so hard with me when I landed upon that stuff because I was in such a dark time in my life and I needed to be fulfilled. I needed to have that purpose. I needed to scratch my creative itch, and letting go of something that I just was so toxic for me, like me personally, not for everyone. There's a time and a place for everyone.
Some people can continue to do both.
Some like people can totally do both.
Somebody who can, but I'd say the first big thing would be like, so you might have a certain amount of income that you're earning as a mechanic. It might be quite good. Have a little look at like what it costs for you to live. Yeah. So if you can keep those costs like really low, like if you don't have like a shiny house and a mortgage and all this other stuff, like hopefully those costs can be minimized.
Yes.
Because at the beginning of music, you're not going to be earning necessarily the same amount that you would from a full-time.
You don't even know what you're going to be earning.
Yeah, you have no idea.
You have no idea. Like that, and that's one thing. Like again, take the leap without figuring it. Like you'll figure it out along the way.
That's right.
Basically.
But I would definitely say, like, if you're earning $2,000 a week,
yeah,
in your job,
and you're spending $2,000 a week,
and
you got to stop spending $2,000 a week.
Yeah. Time for a cheaper house. Time for eat some more beans.
Yeah.
You know, Colter Wall says that in one of his songs. I got to stop eating steak and go back to beans.
Yeah.
Minimize that cost. So then you can sort of be like, well, look, I only need to make $1,000 a week from my music career, and there's a million ways that you can break that up. Whether you're a producer, it could be 2 to 3 days in working for an artist, or it could be 5 days if you're still really young. Go, I can only work for $200 a day, but working 5 days a week, that's $1,000 a week. You know, it's like it's not too bad. If you're a band, it could be shows. Like, how many shows do we need to do? How many pieces of merch do we need to sell? They're going to be like your biggest sort of income earners.
Yeah.
Then obviously, like, the extrapolation from that is like, how are you generating people to come to shows? How are you building fans? And a lot of that is, you know, saved for a social media podcast, which I know we've touched on a bit, but is just such a massive part of today. You're a brand.
We'll do round 2 for that.
Well, yeah, just the whole branding side of you as a band, you as an artist, you as a producer, like all of those things matter. So yeah, if you can keep your sort of life costs down to a minimum, if you're really young and you're living at home, brilliant. You know, stay at home as long as you can.
Yeah. Be nice to your parents because they feed you.
Like, feed you, put a house, you know, over your head. Yeah. As much as you can do when you're young, like try and really establish yourself from as young as you can. Yeah. For some of us, it just wasn't an option. So
if you're a band, like, live together. Like, that's one thing that I know a few guys are doing. I've done it before.
Bands are going to have the hardest slog out of any of this.
Bands will struggle the most.
4 of you or 5 of you,
because you're splitting the costs majority of the time, which isn't also always the worst thing, because it's even paying, even make. So it's even out, even in, basically.
Well, yeah, I know that, but like a solo artist or a duo can still be making the same amount of money as a 5-piece band. Yeah. So then you're splitting it 5 ways. You know, it's a harder slog always. It's why it is the dream to be in a band. Yeah. Like the whole idea of a band is the epitome of music, especially popular music, alternative music. It is the coolest thing because you've got hopefully your 4 or 5 best friends, and all the turmoil that goes into it, I'm sure. But that's why it is the coolest thing and the hardest thing. If you're a soloist, it's so different. You
can kind of make your own decisions and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But then bands have all these other cool additives. You've got like 4 or 5 people that can be working on these things together. Potentially people that are good at different aspects, good at social media, you know, good at, you know, there's 5 times the potential. There's 5 people's minds who can be put to work. There's 5 people that can go put up posters instead of 1. You know, there's a lot of like hopefully benefits, but you know, you don't want to sort of rest on your laurels and be like, oh, we're just a band and there's like the leader of the band. And they're going to do everything and we're just along for the ride.
No riding coattails. No. Big no. That will just you may as well shoot yourself in the foot. Like
one person trying to drag a band into a sustainable music career, like it's got to be impossible.
Yeah, you may as well quit that band.
Yeah, I would say, like, you know, just kind of call it how it is, and if there is just one of you that's driving it all, you sort of just draw a line in the sand and be like, hey guys, like I want to make this my whole life, and if the rest of them are like, we don't, that's cool too. Let them like have their jobs, but also like if you need a replacement. You know, they need to
they got to be open to it.
Yeah,
they got to be open to be replaced and maybe not be on the record and those sorts of things. Yes.
Yeah. So
hard conversations, but transparency will save you, right? Transparency will save you. So you got to really dig deep and understand what you want out of it. You know, for me, leaving my job diving into a career of music, I was like, there's nothing going to get in the way. Like, no band. My parents don't have a say. Like, nothing. Like, everyone get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of still like that now. Like, I do have a lot. Like, that's quite harsh to say, you know. I'm very collaborative. I'm easy to work with.
Yeah.
But this career has made me so fucking happy to a point where, like, you know, I don't really answer to anyone other than somebody creative, and I love that. Like, I love being able to bounce those ideas and
it's a mutual thing.
It's a mutual thing, and learn from people that I respect in the same way. And there's many other facets to it, and shitloads of learning curves. Again, it's paving your own way. An entrepreneurial mindset is something that you're not born with. People just, like, especially creative people, they can build that skill.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur is someone that uses their creativity to build business in many, many different ways.
I think the slight difference too, like with a music career as a producer at least, is the networking side to entrepreneurial mindset in a business, like in a normal business. Like, you have to be meeting so many people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need to meet that many people. It just needs to be the right people in music. Like, if you're at a point that you can, like, charge a decent amount to make an album, like, you could probably live off making 3 albums a year. And whatever you're doing with the rest of the time, like taking the time off, being with friends, being with family, you could probably make a decent living making 3 albums a year if they're paying you, you know, a decent amount for making those records. And then there might be like some pop fly singles or EPs along the way. But again, like, hopefully those artists like have, like, especially if they can afford, you know, to pay you a decent amount. I'm not talking the extraordinary ones. Hopefully they've got a few years in them as well. So you're making their albums every year. They're continually coming back. And then from the success of those albums, you know, you're basically just generating more business for yourself, because younger artists who are coming up go, oh, I really like that record. Who made it? Yeah. Can you make a record for us?
Exactly right. And if you get that repeat client, like, that's income. That's like annual income.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then you can choose to fill your time however you want.
Yeah.
You want to fill your time surfing, skating, hanging out with buddies, with your family, with your significant other. Like, you've got that time on your hands. You know, to make 3 albums is probably only really like 4 to 5 months of the year actually working on those records. So the rest of the time you could spend, whatever it is, working on your business,
creating other opportunities for yourself,
getting more clients, doing all that fun free stuff for younger artists who could potentially be like a Tones and I, you know, like just volunteering to write with them or help them for a day or half a day or whatever. Like, you never know who these people are going to turn into.
Like, if you're someone that's in a band and you're booking that band constantly, book other bands. Create that job for yourself. If you're someone that records the project, record other bands, create that job for yourself. If you're someone that does all the social media promotion and does the weird reel mock-ups and all that sort of stuff, like, create that job for yourself. You know, there's so many ways you can really create all these different sources of income so you do survive in this industry. Merchandising, like, you can totally get creative with. You don't have to just print a t-shirt and sell it at an event. Like, you know, do crazy shit. Like, get 20 shirts and paint on them and make them exclusive to this run. And
well, even like some of those like big dogs, obviously it's an extreme level, but like Dr. Dre and stuff like that, like they had, like, he had his headphone business in the end. Like, they have all these other businesses and real estate, and I'm sure like they're doing entrepreneurial stuff. And even at a lower level, you could do that too. Like, you could be a music producer and make t-shirts, you know, and have your own little cool brand on the side. Because when you have the downtime, instead of being like, oh, I've got no one to work with this week, it's like, well, cool, I'm going to go work on my other little project.
Create passive income.
Yeah.
So when there is the lulls, you can lean back on something else.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Or if you just write books, like
Yeah.
go on Twitch and video game on Twitch, whatever it is. Like, there's so many cool little other ways. Whatever you're fascinated with, and as we know, all musicians and producers and things like have some other fascinations in life. It's not like every single second is music.
No. We're all nerds.
Yeah. Well, even a social life, like a healthy social life, is like perfect for networking as well, because it's like, who are you going to meet when you're, going to a pub or an event or something, and someone's invited you, and you're like, oh, well, this person like is making a record, and it's like, oh, they weren't even on my radar. That was like that with the Dregs. Like, they just weren't on my radar. I didn't know who they were, like, for no reason.
Yeah.
I wasn't avoiding them. They just didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, whatever. They didn't show up in my algorithm or whatever it was. And yeah, sure enough, just through knowing people and reaching out and just being happy enough to get on a phone call with people, I never expected anything.
Yeah.
Hollow Cove's the same. I know I ended up writing with those guys, but I was just like, oh, you guys are killing it. Like, so many streams and such lovely people. Let's have lunch and eat burgers and talk shit.
And that's the thing. Like, sometimes a client will take you years to basically massage and get to a point where they're going to give you money for a service.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still talking to clients where they haven't booked anything yet. Like, I'm going to work with them in the future. Like, they've already worded that to me, but we've booked nothing. We're just chatting because we are equal nerds, right? Like,
it's just
we
fun
love
to talk
it.
about
Like,
music,
and
life and the industry, and
yeah.
you never know too. Like, again, like Hollow Cove's like had 200 million streams or something on that song when I met them. So I'm walking in maybe thinking like, oh, these guys, like, they know a thing or two about stuff, and they were like, we know nothing.
Yeah,
we don't know how it happened, or this is this has been our journey, and explained it. And I was like, wow, like, you guys are just literally just lovely people and musicians who happened to write a song and it went viral, and
most of them are so lovely.
Yeah. There's some wild cards out there, but most of the time, like, they're just super nice and kind of have no idea how they got there, from nothing more than just hard work, showing up, being consistent, working on whatever their craft is. Like, if you're, hectic, want to be a hectic musician, want to be a John Mayer guitar player, like, you got a lot of work ahead of you. You got a lot of work
play
to
the
do.
shit out of that guitar. Like,
but if you're just playing like beautiful folk music, all you need to do is strum. Like, what's more important is probably connecting with an audience, being a nice person. Like, if you can like really make solid connections, even if there's 20 people in the crowd, like, it's a lot easier right there in front of them than it is like through your phone to like make a solid connection with 20 people. It's probably going to take more time to do it on your phone, answering their comments, DMing them, things like that. And scale that up like every time. If you're just a lovely person on stage and really want those people in the crowd, or the lonely people, to feel connected, essentially, like, you can do that. And if that's your thing, you can do it. Like, your musicianship maybe doesn't need to be as good.
No.
If your banter is like out of this world,
know your strengths.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you want to just be like, I want the music to speak for everything, again, you're in the band category. It's the hardest slog. You've got to be so exceptional in your craft to be a Frank Ocean, who rarely says anything, does anything, cancels every show. Still, we love him.
Still sells tickets.
That's what I mean. Finding that balance, like, honing in on the parts that you can really excel at. And again, it's about, at the end of the day, selling a product. You're a brand. You're an entertainment business. You're a producer, but in that sense, you're entertaining the band. You're a bit of a therapist for them.
True that.
You've got to be sort of a kind heart and a patient person generally to, stick with these people while they're working on their thing that can be quite sensitive.
Baby.
Exactly. So, pulling all of those elements together, I think, is only going to help you make the leap. yeah, and as far as like the sort of key points, I guess, in actually making the leap, I'd say the biggest ones were always for me is like not having too many expenses, so that, you know, if you are having a rough week or whatever, it's not like the end of the world. You know, you're not going to lose your house or lose your rental or something like that. So just be realistic.
I think a good one is just not having any expectation either. Like,
Yeah.
yes, you've got that itch to scratch, that need, that desire to succeed in a career of music. But just go out there and figure it the fuck out. Like, take small steps towards that big step. Like, you know, wide-eyed, open mind, baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't expect people to hire you just because you are enthusiastic. You know?
Yeah.
Don't expect people to hire you because you've made 20 records.
Yeah.
Like, no expectation. Like,
That's right.
that never stops.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're always going to need more runs on the board. Don't let it hinder you either. Like, people say that to me sometimes. Oh, you need a few more runs on the board. And it's like, well, yeah, like, always.
That's why I'm asking.
You know, like, I want to get to that next step. I want to do the next thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it will kind of never really end.
No.
And yeah, you may never make a hit record.
But that is purpose, right? That's like, that's the seeking that I'm still like, you know, I love the hunt in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, still talking to new artists and being like, have you heard this band? Like, we should do something like this, you know? Or have you heard this artist? Like, this is what I did with them last time.
Yeah.
Or, you know?
Yeah, never be afraid to message anyone.
Nah.
Yeah, cool. Like, they don't reply or whatever. That's fine. But one of them will.
Yeah.
You never know. You just don't know, like, if what you're putting these people on a pedestal, like Hollow Coves, 200 million streams. But, like, when I met them, they were, like, so in need of, like, hanging out and, like, talking to people because they just kind of didn't have this massive music community. And I was like, well, come and be a part of ours. Like, you guys are awesome and lovely people. Like, be a part of our community, whatever you need. I'm always here. Now it's different. Like, they've got their community and, like, they're killing it and touring the world. But at the time, like, from the outside, you might think that. And it's just really not the case. You know, you don't know what people are going through in their own little struggles, you know, to find their place in this great musical land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is forever changing.
Yeah.
So again, create your own path.
Yeah.
Like, there's formulas. You can take little pieces from it.
Yeah.
But make your own.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, make your own path. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And take the leap into the unknown. Into the unknown, man.
Yes. Yeah.
It's enjoyable and you won't regret it.
It's the best job in the world when it works.
Yeah. Cool.
And on that note, that has been
It's almost an hour.
Rainbows on Wax.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Rainbow.